talk about PICC lines, different agents we can use for them, and some other situations we get into, and what we'd use, and we'll just go from there. So on our PICC line dressings, what we've seen in the past is that we've not always done things the same way, so we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page on these things. I'm not going to do any really demonstration on a lot of stuff just because we don't have time, but whenever we do a PICC line dressing, we want to always make sure there's two people at the bedside. We usually call it our sterile person and our dirty person. Our sterile person obviously is going to do the sterile dressing. Our dirty person will be the one taking off the dressing, keeping an eye on the clock, making sure the person stays sterile, and holding the patient down. So some of the things that we're noticing is if I go into a room and I'm going to do the sterile part, I usually will ask my dirty person to take off the dressing, but make sure they're not touching the stat lock. Everything underneath this PICC line dressing is considered sterile, so it is the job of the sterile person to take off the stat lock dressing. The problem is I know that you guys have encountered, is taking off the dressing is, you might find it difficult sometimes because the tegaderm will stick to the plastic on the stat lock. So some of the things that we can do is to take off this tegaderm is when you're taking off a tegaderm, what you can do is, as you're taking it off, if you easily just pull to the sides, it'll release the tegaderm enough to where it'll come off of the plastic piece. So it's very easy to come off of this without having to touch the stat lock itself. You could also ask your sterile person for the Q-tip if you're having issues, but it's the most important thing is that your dirty person is not touching the sterile stat lock that's underneath. The other things we want to make sure is, as we're taking off any type of dressing, that we're always going furthest from the insertion site. We're going to start from down here and go towards the insertion site. If we start taking the dressing off down this way, we could accidentally pull the line out. The ones that you'll see that the most that you have to be careful is if you've got a tunneled line in their back. I see a lot of people that want to take the dressing down, but those lines are not sutured, and if you start pulling down on the line from the site, then you could pull the line out. So make sure that you're always going furthest away from the site and going to the site as you're pulling off, so that the line doesn't get taken out. So a lot of times we've got these PICC line dressings, and they start bleeding, and we want to start doing things to stop the bleeding, but we don't want to have to change the dressing a lot. I know in the past it's been really easy to have the gauze in the dressing kit and use that, but we really want to try to get away from using any kind of gauze on our dressings unless the line is leaking, only because it's only good for 48 hours. So we want to use something that's going to last a little bit longer, and we got a lot of hemostatic agents that last for 7 days, so we've got a couple to choose from, and hopefully those will be the ones that work and we don't have to change the dressing as much. So we've got Stat Seal. Stat Seal can be found in the CI, we can ask them for it, or we can get it from PICC Team. A lot of times PICC Team will put in a new PICC line dressing and already have the Stat Seal. This is the stuff that looks like dirt when we were looking at the dressings. We also got Surgiseal, really easy, convenient stuff to find in the Pyxis. Also good for 7 days. And Avitine needs a physician's order to get it from pharmacy. So Avitine, Stat Seal, and Surgiseal are all good for 7 days. So if you can, try to use those first. Sometimes those don't always work out, and we have to go to some bigger guns. Some of our bigger guns are Quick Clot. You'll see that like kind of our liver kids. These things don't work, and we'll have to use some Quick Clot, and this is only good for 24 hours. Regardless of any agent you use, the key to any kind of hemostatic agent is to use pressure. We've all known to do this in the past, and hopefully we'll slowly get out of it. But if you're using a hemostatic agent, the most important thing to do is, we're going to kind of use this guy right here and pretend this is just an open line. if we have a hemostatic agent, we want to make sure that we are actually putting pressure for 3 to 5 minutes. You'll still all do this all in a sterile fashion, but that's the key to a lot of this. So one of the keys I've learned with the Surgiseal is I found that if I've used a Surgiseal, a lot of times the blood will still trickle down this line and end up getting blood all in the bottom part of our dressing, and we'll have to change it again. So I found a little trick that might work for you guys, is you can use one piece of Surgiseal and just cut it in half, or you can get 2 Surgiseals, but put one at the top of the insertion site, and if you simply put another one underneath, it'll collect all that blood that's trickling down following that line. And that's kind of helped me in the past to not have to change it as much. Remember, again, hold pressure on the site for 3 to 5 minutes, and then just dress that. StatSeal, we don't have to do that much, and we usually don't get it all that often that we want to use it, but it's definitely easy to use. It has a little cut right here. If you're, that's for is if you put it around the line. Even you can do it on a PIC line, A line, anything you need to do, but put it around. If you aim it down and it's a PIC line, the StatSeal might kind of drip down, so I kind of like to turn it a little bit, and you can put the StatSeal on it. It looks like dirt. You'll put a lot in there, or a good amount in there. I don't want to get this too dirty. But then you'll have your disc. You'll put that on top, put the pressure, hold it down 3 to 5 minutes, and leave the disc on there, leave everything on there, and then dress the site. So that's how the StatSeal works. Again, good for 7 days. Your Avitine is, I couldn't get it because it's from pharmacy, but we've known to get Avitine and just kind of sprinkle it like snow. But the key with Avitine is to put it on and pack it, and make sure you pack it around the whole site. And then again, you can use a sterile gauze and hold the pressure. Just make sure you don't leave the gauze on the site and then dress it, because if you leave any gauze under the dressing, you'll have to change it in 48 hours. But the key to this is just packing it and not using it as a sprinkled snow. Okay, so you got those. Same thing with the quick clot. We got 2 different kinds. We have this one that's good for A lines, PIC lines, and again, hold pressure. And then we have one that has a cut that's great for indwelling line that you can wrap around the line. So those are good. This one, quick clot, 24 hours. So if we can use something good for 7 days, that'd be great. If by chance you couldn't find anybody to get you a hemostatic agent and you use the gauze, it's only good for 48 hours. So sometimes also our patients will have areas that have been broken down, blisters that have opened up underneath the dressing. And what we're making sure that everybody knows is that we're not using a regular sterile kit for that. We shouldn't use the CHG. Remember, CHG will burn the skin, and it would be very irritating for the patient. So we do want to use some betadine for anybody who's got open areas underneath the dressing. And good key for the betadine is they're already saturated with a lot. So if you can hold your finger down to where the actual swab is, hold it just to kind of release some of that betadine so you don't get as much, and then open up the package, and the swabs inside of them are sterile. So your dirty person will be opening it up. You can use the sterile swabs. Remember, with the betadine, you're still going to use the old method of from inside, starting at the site and moving out around it and not going back into it. The other thing with betadine is you have to make sure it completely dries. With any dressing, whether you're using CHG or betadine, in order for everything to get to be killed off, all the germs and things, they have to completely dry. With betadine on the skin, sometimes it can cause an irritation. If you know that it may cause an irritation, what you can use is that pack of 4x4s that you can put some saline in it and dab some of the excess betadine off, so that it won't irritate our skin, and then dress the line. Other dressings that we sometimes use are bio-occlusives. Reasons why we use that: if they have tegaderm allergy, or their skin is just, a lot of our Hemon kids don't like the tegaderms and they would rather use the bio-occlusive. Bio-occlusive has an ABC, so you'll be removing your A, putting it down, pulling off your B's on this side, and then removing your C's. And I'm trying to use these again, sorry guys. And then the other thing is, I forgot to tell you, is stat locks. Just a little tidbit. When you open it up, the wings tend to be underneath the stat lock, so it's sometimes hard to get it. What I like to do is just pull it out and pull one of the sides out to the side a little bit, so that when I'm actually putting it under the dressing, that it's easy to grab it. I don't know if you can see that. It's easy to grab it. Otherwise, it's sticking all under there and you're trying to reach for it. So just have it pull out a little bit, put it under the dressing. Also, before you stick it under their skin, if you just kind of move these little plastic pieces, sometimes they're hard and a little rigid before, so I just kind of move them before I get started with my dressing kit. And I think that's it.